Hi guys, welcome back to Simplified. I'm your host Michael.
And I am Gurjot.
This is episode 2.
In this episode, we spoke to Dr. Mikhail Dittmar.
Mikhail is spelled like Michael, except you're saying Mikhail, not Michael. Tell me
Yes.
about that.
Because he's German, and in Germany, in German language, Michael is pronounced as Mikhail.
Alright, fair enough.
Fair enough, right? His name's Mikhail Dittmar, and I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last year because I've taken his courses here at ETH.
Yeah.
And we also hung out actually a couple of times.
Oh, so now you're like homies, basically.
Yeah. I wouldn't name it.
Alright.
I love talking to him. He's pretty intelligent. He's devoted to what he does, and he has a great sense of humor. Actually, he has his own way, his own spin-off on all the things that he talks about. I love talking to him.
Now, Mikhail works at CERN.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick background on him. So he did his PhD in particle physics in Hamburg, in Germany, and then he joined CERN in 1985.
So he's
He's one of the big shots.
one of the big shots, one of the cool guys working at CERN.
Yeah, he just casually started working at CERN, and since I'd say 25 years now, he's been at ETH as well. So he works at CERN, but he's also at ETH. He's
Giving courses or researching
giving
as well?
courses and also researching. He's a senior scientist
Awesome.
at ETH. And of course, the focus today is not on particle physics, even though Dr. Dittmar is a particle physicist by training.
Yeah, we actually covered a surprising range of topics, I would say.
Yeah, you could say that, because Dr. Dittmar's focus for the last 2 decades, I guess, has been slightly different. He's been focused on the energy crisis, on the energy and electricity crisis, I should say.
For example, trying to estimate how much fuel there is actually left on Earth.
Yeah, he goes through all the data published by, say, governments and oil companies and
the World Bank.
The World Bank.
Yeah.
And then he tries to find discrepancies in it. He tries to find if there's any proof to all the things that the oil companies are trying to make us believe.
So he's actually kind of like a data scientist.
He is actually a data scientist, actually, yeah. So a quick overview of things that we covered while talking to him was, one, we are running out of fossil fuels.
There's no doubt about it. The world kind of agrees on this, but we also touched on more ambiguous topics, right?
Yeah, before we get to the ambiguous parts, when you realize that you're running out of fossil fuels, nuclear power comes to mind.
So one of the possible solutions alongside renewable energies like solar power and wind is nuclear
power.
fusion, specifically.
Yeah, right now we use nuclear fission, but there is hope that someday we'll be able to use nuclear fusion, which is practically an unlimited source of energy. However,
In theory, yeah. So,
in theory,
ideally, we have this energy. We managed to create it, and that's why people are investing billions of dollars in it.
However, Dr. Dittmar very firmly believes that it's all baloney. There's no way nuclear fusion could ever provide electricity.
Because for him, it's basically like creating a tiny sun here in a lab, which thinking of it, sounds insane.
Yeah, technically it's not creating the sun that's the problem, it's holding the sun that's the problem, and then using it to make electricity out of it.
And finally, he touched on
Slightly more philosophical issue. Because we talked to him for nearly an hour and things got a bit overwhelming and slightly depressing, you could say. So we asked him what kept him going every day, and we discussed what the future of humanity would be.
If you wanna, I guess, know the meaning of life,
Yeah.
stay tuned
Stay
into
tuned
this
till the end, yeah. You will find our view and Dr. Dittmar's view on the meaning of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome
Dr. Dittmar. Now, getting to the main focus of why we have you here today, what can you tell us about natural resources as a crisis in the world today? Like, what more specifically, what does it mean to have X years of a certain resource left, say uranium or oil or coal, what does it mean?
Okay, so I think first of all one should sort of look at the how do so-called modern societies function today.
Mm-hmm.
So what most people understand as a modern society is a highly industrialized society. And these industrial societies, or industrial agriculture, everything is sort of has this pre-word industrial around it.
Yes.
So it's highly mechanized and with lots of technology in it, and all these technologies run on energy.
Mm-hmm.
And energy has to come from somewhere. And we have so-called energy resources, so therefore I would like to concentrate for now on these energy resources mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And these are dominantly fossil fuels,
Yes.
meaning coal, gas and oil.
Mm-hmm.
And oil is by far the most important of all these energy resources, not only industrial countries but worldwide also.
Yes.
And one could say that the globalized economy is unimaginable without oil.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a tiny contribution, but we can come later to this, from nuclear fission energy,
Yes.
which if you include all energy, it makes something like 2% worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So physicists would say, if starting to think like this, that 2% of all the energies we use worldwide is 2% nuclear, we can essentially forget it.
Yes.
It's a tiny perturbation, let's ignore it for the moment.
Comes in the error margins.
Yes.
To give us a contrast, how much percent is based on oil?
Well, it's about 40%.
So
40% of the world, modern world, runs on oil.
And so, just to make it a bit more specific, when you say 40%, is this just electricity or is it energy resource
No.
in its entirety?
So that's so many people, when they talk about energy, they brought into the game is only electric energy.
Yes.
But its energy is also needed to move cars and trucks and ships and planes,
Yes.
and this is based all on oil.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the infrastructure we currently
Yes.
have cannot be run on electricity.
Yes, exactly.
And how much of this infrastructure?
Oh,
Like-
85%,
85%. Okay.
sort of worldwide. So let's say in Switzerland, electricity fraction of the total energy is something like 25%. So
Mhm.
let's say higher developed societies, as we call them, the electricity takes a larger fraction.
Mm-hmm.
So computers run on electricity, they don't run on oil.
Yes.
At least I have seen very few running on oil, but sort of from time to time a few drops of oil. But I think it could be developed different ones.
So the world average consumption of electricity is something about
16%.
16% of the total energy
Yes.
consumption.
Yes, and of the total electricity, about 10% is nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
So if you multiply the two, you end up with 2% is nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we can come back if you want to this
Yes.
nuclear energy afterwards. Let's say if you go for the whole energy sector. Now, people know since long time that these fossil fuels were made from, let's say, old biomass from 100 million years and more ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, one likes to say sometimes, so the oil we use is the blood of the dinosaurs,
Mm-hmm.
which was just created some 60, 100 million years ago.
Yes.
Coal deposits are a little bit older, but it gives you an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's obvious if this comes from, let's say, old biomass, the amount of biomass absorbed every year and is kind of stored deep underground
Mm-hmm.
over 100 of million years can be quite a lot, but it's finite.
Yes.
And once you start using it, eventually it will end.
So we're consuming it way faster than it's being developed.
Yes, kind of in the million of year faster. A million times faster than it's being created.
Yes.
So basically, let's say again, for let's say a physicist or human time scale of let's say a
Mhm.
few generations, so basically it is a fixed amount.
Yes.
It's
So
there, and this fixed amount we seem to use up very quickly. Now this comes then back to this: how long or how many resources
Mhm.
we have.
yes.
So people, especially economists, came up with the idea, and so at current consumption, for how many years we have known resources.
Mm-hmm.
And now the magic is in this at current consumption. So if the consumption is constant, which it was never during the past 50, 100 years,
Yes.
but it was growing strongly. So then it's very different. So if you grow every year the consumption by 5%, for example,
Mm-hmm.
then in 14, 15 years you use twice as much as you use today.
Yes.
Right?
Do current predictions not take into account the increasing
No,
consumption?
No, they take at today's usage.
So when like
For example, oil is often said so. Conventional oil at today's usage for 40 years. But if it would double the usage, because let's say 6 out of 7 people in the world almost don't use any oil,
Mm-hmm.
and they also perhaps would like to use oil,
Yes.
then you can divide already by a factor of 6 or so.
Yes.
Right?
and are we
So the 40 years then divide by 6, it makes 6 years or so,
yeah.
which is sort of a very different perspective.
And it's true for all resources. If you look at uranium, which is the primary resource for nuclear fission,
It's for all the same.
it's for all their own current consumption. And so, do you know what the statistic for how much uranium we have based on current consumption, of course?
Well, now, so the official numbers documented every 2 years
Mm-hmm.
says something like 100 years at current consumption.
But current consumption is only 2%
Yes, right.
of total.
Yes.
And so, what do you have to say
But
about?
then sort of these official agencies, they are
Yes.
not, the estimates are not made by, let's say, physicist or natural science estimate. Most of them.
They're economical estimates.
They're economical estimates. Which means sort of there is a certain wisdom involved. And some of the numbers are very political also.
Yes.
So these agencies, let's say, especially for uranium, it's done very precisely
Mm-hmm.
because it's highly sensitive uranium for weapon building. So therefore there was this UN, United Nations organization created some
Yes.
40 years back. And so they try to document the knowledge. And they
Mhm.
take the information from all governments around the world.
Yes.
And as not all governments, I mean, in some smaller countries, poorer countries, the people don't, even the government doesn't know what's in the ground. So then they ask companies
To do it for them.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And the companies represent their knowledge, at least the knowledge they want to tell the public,
So, a question specific to this.
or the governments in the country.
So, given how you get data from the UN or the International Energy Association or the Energy Institute in America, or you have private companies like BP, Shell, Exxon giving their own data. So, you have so many sources of data. Do you ever find any discrepancies in the data that comes up? Like, how trustworthy do you, what do you trust?
Well, okay. So you look at this data. So you get the first time and you get impressive amount of data, as you said.
Yes.
And you say, okay, sounds very good, and they know this to a precision of % or per mil.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe some people who have some geological knowledge, or let's say knowledge on how you do experiments in physics.
Yes.
So if we measure certain things and we try to be very precise, and let's say in particle physics, if you make a 5% measurement of something,
Mm-hmm.
with a huge effort, we are already feeling pretty proud.
Okay.
So now if somebody says, I make a measurement to a precision of a 1% or per mil,
Yes.
then you ask some questions. How did they do it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get the answer, then you have some doubts in particle physics or in physics in general.
Yes.
So now as a physicist, you look at these resource numbers
Mm-hmm.
and you get them to an incredible precision
Mm-hmm.
and no explanation at all how these numbers are obtained, where they come from, what happens when you have a resource deposit here and you dig something out. It must decrease every year, right?
Yeah, but it
if
keeps
so
increasing.
you only get the one big book which has the numbers from 1 year.
Yes.
You don't know what is the rest.
So even
So-
coming from these big, quote, reputable institutions, you always take a step back and try to analyze.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I even don't believe my own data.
Yeah,
So
okay.
before I present my, let's say, data analysis results to the collaboration, I check it 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say in a functional physics group environment or experiment,
Mm-hmm.
or this sort of critical surrounding,
Yes.
I mean, if you claim something, and I mean, you are immediately shot down if there is no justification for it. So if you say, I discovered the particle so and so, and you have absolutely no evidence for it, I mean, people don't like that. You become famous with it, and they try and so you have to be very sure that you make a correct measurement.
Yes.
Right, in the best case.
Yes.
And so now, if you take this to this all resource question, you quickly find out they never present anything like this.
Yes.
So therefore, in normal, I mean, you don't have to be a Nobel Prize winner to think something with the data is maybe not correct, or they should not be presented like this, or at least they should have uncertainties.
Does that mean there's a lot of misinformation with
Well,
regards?
This is your interpretation.
Okay.
So I would not say there is misinformation, but we could maybe say politically correct. The data are totally inconsistent and make no sense.
So
Which is a
the
different
error
thing.
margins don't
Maybe
make
it has the
sense.
same meaning, but
Maybe.
okay.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say, so then if you follow, let's say every 2 years you get this report on uranium resources.
Yes.
And you see dramatic changes over the year in certain countries by a factor of 2. And it's absolutely nothing to do with what has been digged out of this particular resource during the last 2 years.
Yes.
And you follow this over the years, which I had the chance to do,
Yes.
kind of as a side effect, because I updated every 2 years the numbers I found in these books. And it's easy to realize that these numbers are based on, well, at least not physics or theological understanding of the reserves.
Based on a more economic and political aspect and
Yes.
less natural science. Okay,
Yes.
so coming
wishful
back
thinking,
to
in other words.
okay, so coming back to the energy question. So, do you think nuclear fission is a viable resource?
Well, this depends on how you mean it. Let's say in Switzerland, for example, roughly 40% of the current electric energy system comes from nuclear energy.
Talking about world over, since the world over right now it's only 2%, like you
10%,
said.
10% for the electric.
10% for electricity.
Yes.
So, do you think there is scope on expanding it? Can we build more nuclear plants? Will that be a good thing to do?
Okay. I must say, personally, I don't like to judge things by good or bad, because it depends on a hidden philosophy which one has in the stomach somehow.
Yes.
So I like to, let's say, one can look at certain trends on how this evolves. For example, so how many nuclear power plants are being built every year and how many are sort of dismantled or stopped because they are too old.
Yes.
And in which areas are being nuclear power plants built and where not. So this is, for example, one thing one can look at. And this is out of this trend, one can see already certain evolutions happening. So I find this dynamic approach to it, like for resource exploration or mining of coal or uranium, in order to see trends, one can also learn something without knowing great details about resources. But maybe we come back to this later.
Okay.
So, because the question was more, so how many nuclear power plants are being built in the world today? So in the moment to last, or 2016, there was a year where, especially in China, I think 9 reactors started operating.
Okay.
Officially.
And
What I had seen during the last couple of years, so they were relatively according to schedule in China. And so it takes some 1 or 2 years until they come to the full power, but it was done relatively smoothly in China so far. But they have very few. Now there's a huge program in China to construct nuclear power plants. So in total in the world today, 60 nuclear power plants are under construction.
Okay.
And half of them in China.
And the rate is currently increasing because China is really pushing.
No, the rate in the world is actually constant.
So China is building and the world is...
So in China they're building new ones which are kind of getting ready. But so if in the whole world it's more or less constant, it means in other countries, mainly the Western, richer OECD countries,
Yes.
that's constant or declining.
Why is that?
Well, they are just getting old and no new power plant is being built.
So from a resource perspective, do we
So
have...
They have an age of something like 35, 40 years now, and well, everything comes with a lifetime.
It's just they're not interested in rebuilding new ones.
Well, it's maybe too expensive, or to this or to that, or people don't want it, or they have sort of some other problems. This one needs to investigate a bit more in detail. But these are simple observations. You can just see, so in Western Europe there were, I don't know, 150 at the most, and now there are something like 130 operating.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's just a trend which is there, and they are not being new constructed. And you see the age of the reactors getting every year 1 year older,
Yes.
and they come to some kind of a limit. Nobody knows exactly what the limit is, and everybody has a different opinion on it.
Mhm.
But for example, right now in France, 1/3 of the reactors is stopped
Yes.
because they have some security issues.
Mhm.
Details are not really given, but they are just stopped. And this during a time of the year when they should be all on.
Because
all
winter
there,
is
because
coming.
in winter one needs much more electricity than in summer.
Does that mean that most Western countries don't see it as a viable renewable energy source?
Yes, well, it's not renewable in any case.
Yes.
It is not renewable.
There's nothing to do with renewable.
But it's clean. Is it clean?
Depends on the point of view. So some people are more, let's say, radiation resistant than others.
Mhm.
So some people can support drinking more alcohol than others, right? Now, does it mean they're alcohol resistant? I don't know. So this is a tricky question. So there one needs to go in much more details, let's say the scientific knowledge about what does ionizing particles do to bodies.
Right.
Yes.
So there's a lot
And this
of
should be done.
yeah.
And so I try to give also this in my lectures. I address these questions. But this is a I mean, you can address all the energy sectors by different contributions. Let's say, so the environmental problem or radiation problem or the CO2 problem. So all this needs to be in consideration if one does a decision. Now, does it matter if some people die from every year on, let's say, radiation or in wars or by starvation?
Mm.
Mhm.
Does it matter? Well, maybe for you and me it matters, but it doesn't matter for everybody. Well, it's okay, it's bad luck,
Mhm.
Right.
some people say.
So,
So this is then a judgment, right? So if you have a philosophical, ethical basis, where you say, no, there should be no person starving today.
mhm.
So this should be the prime effort of a government. And if they don't do it, then the government should resign,
Yes.
right? I mean, it could be an idea. At least they should go in this direction.
Mhm.
Now, if they don't do it, well, then maybe there are other reasons which are more important than these moral, ethical principles.
Mhm.
So this is, I think one should distinguish this kind of moral, ethical judgment from, let's say, scientific reasoning. Now, in my understanding, it should go together.
Yes.
So this was more, let's say, as Einstein said it, well, I mean, science without, let's say, moral responsibility, this is a horror, it's a nightmare.
Thank you for listening. If you liked it, we'd really appreciate it if you shared it and gave us your feedback. This was part 1. Part 2 comes out this Thursday. For more details, visit our website simplified.xyz.